Hey yo people, this is going to be a detailed play-by-play rebuttal of ProJared's review of Sonic Adventure 2, in which I think his points were poorly reasoned or even flat out incorrect in a lot of areas. The reason I'm making this is because the Sonic Adventure games are very important to me, as well as important to the rest of the Sonic series as a whole, so when someone misrepresents them or spreads misinformation to people who will believe it, it ends up harming the series. The adventure games have been unfairly smeared in the past few years, and while ProJared isn't solely to blame for their tarnished reputation, if the view count and like-dislike ratio is anything to go on, at least this video needs addressing in a proper rebuttal. So in ProJared's review, a lot of the time it's hard to tell when he's joking around or actually making a cogent point. So for the sake of my rebuttal, I'll respond to every notable point I disagree with in earnest. If I don't respond to something in the video, it's either not notable or something I agree with.
Overall, this game is not good. It's awful. But it has little bits of good in it that we absolutely love.
I'm going to respond to this from the perspective of someone who thinks the game is exceptional and is the best 3D Sonic game. So, let's jump right into my response.
Sonic Adventure 2 is one of the few Sonic games that everyone remembers fondly.
This is a very strange point, to say SA2 is one of the few Sonic games that everyone remembers fondly. For some reason, throughout this review, Jared seems to think nobody was criticizing this game up to then, but we'll get into that later.
I really remember liking Sonic Adventure 2, and it's been so long since I played this, I really wanted to go back and see exactly why it is that we all like this game so very, very much.
Spoilers, but this premise leads into his conclusion that because we all love the Chow Garden, we only replayed the speed stages and forgot about the quote-unquote bad stages, thus, quote, warping our perception of the game. I'll respond to that later, but I'd like to point out that it's always the case that there will always be people who resent something just because it's popular. Because it makes them feel good that they don't go along with the popular opinion or the mainstream. I'm not saying ProJared only makes these points for the sake of being a contrarian, but it is important to consider how he's framing this video and his tone towards the game and its fans. You'll see what I mean later.
He somehow escapes and, according to the pilot, kills everyone on board.
I don't know why you'd assume Sonic killed everyone on board when all it means is just knocking them out or incapacitating them.
And this very first stage encompasses what everyone believes a Sonic game to be. A high emphasis on constant speed, a way to perpetually move forward, and minimal platforming.
This is the first of one of his many strange generalizations about how quote-unquote everybody feels. But aside from that, Jared makes a common mistake in thinking Sonic is all about speed, when in reality Sonic is about momentum, or flow. The concept of, with enough skill, taking advantage of the controls and level design to navigate a stage in the most efficient way possible, with exploration at the player's discretion thrown into the mix. He also implies platforming in Sonic should be kept to a minimum. Obviously, this is ridiculous since platforming in Sonic is there to test your skill at not only platforming but also maintaining your speed. Really, there is no single main Sonic game without platforming, so I have no idea where Jared is getting this notion from.
Even though this level has parts that would be completely unacceptable in other games.
This is the first case of Jared blaming his own mistakes as the faults of the game, and this is a persistent issue with reviewers who go over not just the adventure games, but all Sonic games. For some reason, they expect to be instantly good at the game, so whenever they have trouble, they get frustrated and blame the game. Jared failed to time his acrobatics and fell down. He somehow fails to account for the pit which was plainly visible coming into the area, and instead kept holding forward as he fell, when if he didn't, he would have just landed on the ground directly below. To pass this off as unacceptable is laughable, but we're only brushing the tip of the iceberg.
This entire section where you're running from a truck that's the size of every house, and the camera is way too close to you, making it impossible to know what's coming ahead, we don't care, because Sonic.
Hilariously ironic considering he's saying the exact opposite of the truth. Ever since 06, Sonic became the gaming community's punching bag because it makes people feel good about themselves and the games they like, putting something down to push themselves up. As a result, the Sonic hatedom is hypercritical of the most trivial shit and passes it off as a big problem. See the thing from just before. SA1 and 2 have been brutally picked apart and smeared and had strange flaws that aren't flaws at all blown out of proportion. So I just find it hilariously ironic that Jared thinks people don't care because it's Sonic, when in reality the series is hyper-analyzed and smeared because it's Sonic. But about the truck segment itself, he complains that the camera is too close to you and you can't see what's coming in front of you, when you don't need to. There are no obstacles in front of you. The challenge in this segment is to maintain your speed to not get hit by the truck. There are rings and ramps you can hit for extra points, but they aren't necessary to clearing the challenge. They're there for repeat playthroughs and to test your memorization. And when you make a turn, there are dash panels at the edge of the road, so you don't have to worry about an upcoming turn you can't see. So this camera complaint is a non-issue.
And now that I'm playing it again, the moment that this boss fight began, a new memory unearthed itself in my brain. It was a memory that I had suppressed for a long, long time, only to be realized at this very moment. This game sucks. It sucks really, really bad.
Keep this kind of tone in mind with what I said earlier about the trend of contrarians flocking to popular things just to hate on them.
The boss itself is rather inoffensive. Hit him in the cockpit whenever you can. But it's the execution of everything else that's just terrible. The camera is directly behind Sonic, making it impossible to see anything around you. And with the camera always locked onto the boss, camera control is taken further away from you.
Why is the camera focusing on the boss an issue when you don't need to see anything other than the boxes and the boss itself? Even with the automatic camera, the boxes are still easy to find and jump on top of. What's weird is how he's complaining about camera control being automatic, which is weird because that's how the entirety of the game, with the exception of the hunting stages, is. The game teaches you in City Escape that the camera is automatic and will always account for the path of the level. That's how the game is.
And the arena is designed against the player. There are all these crates that you're supposed to stand on to hit your target, which is fine. But several of these crates are placed outside the playable arena, tricking players into thinking that they can go that way in the first place. And the only thing conveying any kind of barrier is a curve that goes up to your ankles. Any reasonable person would believe that they can go out further than the game allows them to.
This point is flat out ridiculous. I don't understand why it's so important he feels he should be able to go outside the arena. Even if you do briefly think you can go outside, it's immediately apparent that you can't and you're confined to the clearly defined circle, punctuated by literal do not enter signs. It's not that hard to understand. Had they not designed it this way, with the invisible wall, you'd instead be running into the buildings and the camera would be clipping into it because of it focusing on the boss. If you then say the camera control shouldn't be automatic, that's a fair point, but it'd contradict the design philosophy of the rest of the game and would have added camera control on top of moving Sonic, accounting for boxes, and the position of the boss, and the list of things the player needs to account for. And I suspect had they gone this route, he'd instead complain about how the boss is too hard to track.
Does this make the boss fight hard? No, he's easy as crap. But that doesn't mean it doesn't have problems that should be ignored.
It's easy as crap. If that's the case, why are you making such a big deal about these supposed flaws? If they didn't hinder your experience enough to affect the difficulty, then how is it enough of a problem to harp on about? This comes off as very nitpicky and complaining for the sake of complaining.
Sonic meets Shadow the Hedgehog, who is there hanging out for some reason, monologuing to himself about the power of the Chaos Emerald.
Shadow is there because he just stole the Chaos Emerald from the bank and finally has a moment of peace from the police and military chasing him, so he's reflecting on his intentions.
That's when Sonic has a sudden realization.
The military has mistaken me for the likes of you!
That's stupid. I mean, really? Does anyone actually think they even look remotely alike? Look at them! Shadow's quills curve upward. He has bracelets on. The tuft of hair on his chest is completely different than Sonic's oval thingy. Their shoes are different. How is everybody in the world so dumb that they can't see the differences in Shadow?
This is a common point brought up, and people always ignore this little thing called context. Shadow stole the Chaos Emerald from the bank moving at blitzing speeds at night. All the police know is that a fast-moving hedgehog-like figure stole a Chaos Emerald. Why wouldn't they suspect Sonic? Now, the news did get a close-up on Shadow's face while still reporting him as Sonic, but 1, Fox News exists, so shitty sensationalist reporting working on outdated information isn't all that far-fetched. 2, they only got that close-up after Sonic had already been detained, after which he escaped and was chased through the city. And 3, Sonic has been seen transforming into different forms before with the Chaos Emeralds, so why wouldn't people assume this is just another one of his forms? Shadow's spines are even shaped exactly like Supersonic's, for God's sake. You might also bring up that Gun should know Shadow escaped from their own base on Prison Island, but you must remember that Project Shadow and the Ark tragedy was something they wanted to cover up, so why would anybody but those given clearance know Shadow escaped or was even held there to begin with? In Sonic's first recap, he says he was detained for escaping from a military facility, so obviously the higher-ups lied about who it really was to keep their secret covered up, and the lower levels of Gun and the police honestly think Sonic was being detained there for some reason, and that he's an escapee who needs to be caught.
On a related note, Amy is a hedgehog too, right? So why hasn't anyone ever confused her with Sonic?
Amy, unlike Sonic, is a regular citizen in Station Square living in an apartment and everything. Plus, she's not a fast-moving hedgehog, so people have a chance to look at her and see she's not Sonic. Also, the fact that Amy and Sonic's silhouettes are completely different, whereas Sonic and Shadow's are different but still similar.
This is a really stupid plot device.
No, it isn't. This plot device is important for two reasons. One, this shakes things up by pitting Sonic against those who would usually be on his side and taking him out of his element. And two, it feeds into a part of the message of the story. Gun makes a mistake in thinking Sonic is Shadow and are repeating the mistake of being iron-fisted and reckless just like they did on the Ark 50 years ago.
Meanwhile, Knuckles is defending the Master Emerald from a new character, Rouge the Bat, who wants to steal it because reasons.
Rouge stole the emerald because she's a thief who's obsessed with jewels.
Setting up Knuckles' stages, which involves finding 3 pieces of the Master Emerald in each stage. And nobody likes these.
I like these. I like these a lot. In fact, I like them more than SA1's hunting stages because the levels are more interesting, the controls are more refined, and you're ranked for your performance. This is something he keeps doing throughout the whole video, making ignorant declarations speaking for everybody. Needless to say, it can be very obnoxious.
The emerald pieces are put in purely random places every time, which means it's almost never in the same place twice.
Maybe you misspoke, but the emerald pieces all have set locations. Which location they're in is random.
The radar, for one. It only works on the first piece at a time, which means even if you're directly on top of another one, it won't signal and you can completely miss it.
I actually agree on how the radar works. This was probably done to make the stages longer when just adding more shards to find with the same radar from SA1 would have been the better method. Either way, this hardly ruins the stages.
You can use the hint boxes, but that lowers your score. And if you want to A rank every stage, you can't use them.
Incorrect. The faster you find an emerald shard, the more points you get from finding it. The way the hint boxes work is they slightly decrease the score you get when you find the next emerald shard, but you can still A rank a stage while using multiple hint boxes. It all just depends on how fast you find them. Here's proof.
And combined with the fact that the emeralds are in completely random places every time, speedrunning these areas is impossible and relies solely on luck.
Not quite. The hunting stages encourage taking advantage of the level design and mastering the movement of the character to account for the different locations of the pieces. He says speedrunning these stages is impossible. These guys beg to differ.
It's actually one of my favorite to do because it requires thinking on your feet about which way to go with the best way to the level, and there's quite a few flip outs that I can do.
This level is very challenging to traverse. You have to really know what you're doing, keep your head on your shoulders, and experience is a real asset here.
Yeah, so like this piece, Angry Man, is towards the blue room, so I want to go this way. It's in an enemy in the hallway.
Another thing you can't see that he's doing is he's looking for free pieces on the side, because a free piece in Death Chamber is awesome.
It saves a bunch of time. So Bugs Baby is back in Red Room, so this is obviously the fastest way, the way I just came from. Ooh.
Knuckles fixed everything in this level. Everything.
Yeah. Iron Protector safe. That's not the best piece. Okay, so that's between red and green room in like a sort of secret passageway. So I want to go this way. Cool.
The secret rooms in this level are very strange because on the map they're very far away from everything. But to us, it's like we just teleported across the map, believe it or not. But the game.
Oh. Okay.
Oh, those boxes are weird.
That was weird. Okay.
As you can get pieces in blue room, for example, and then you can get a piece in blue secret room, and to the player it feels like 6 seconds difference, but to the game you just teleported clear across the whole thing. Very strange piece generation sometimes. Well, 111 is a great time, by the way,
Yeah,
for no free pieces. That's nothing to complain about at all.
And if you die, the emeralds move locations again, making all previous hints worthless.
Well, you died, so that part's on you. But the emeralds changing locations upon dying or restarting is important since emerald locations can be very difficult, but that's not a bad thing. Though if you can't find a piece for the life of you, you can always re-roll for better locations by restarting, or dying, I guess. Passing off the random element of the hunting stages as flaws doesn't make any sense since were they the same every time, there'd be no depth and no point in replaying them, and then you'd be complaining about how pointless the stages are.
You know how people hate it when everything slows down in a Sonic game? Imagine everything slowing down for 5 to 10 minutes at a time, for an entire stage.
Keep that point in mind. This point is nonsensical since the stages are only as fast as you make them. You're meant to gather the pieces as fast as you can, and that involves a lot of jumping, gliding, running that is just as fast as in Sonic stages, only open-ended and non-linear. It's only if you suck that the stages take 5 to 10 minutes, so your lack of skill is not the game's fault.
Another problem is controlling Knuckles. The dude runs fast, like practically Sonic fast. In fact, too fast.
So somehow, the hunting stages are too slow, but the character also moves too fast. Pick one, it can't be both ways. And it's almost as if going fast is kind of reckless and requires more skill from the player and is there to help you complete the stages a lot faster.
His stages are small arena-like areas that typically have multiple chambers, but it doesn't really give much room to run around. It's not conducive to his level design. At no point does having fast movement help Knuckles or the player.
What? What he fails to realize, somehow, is that while the top speed is very fast, the acceleration is very gradual. And this is integral to making a speed-based platformer work. The acceleration allows for perfect movement in tight spaces, but also to pick up speed when you need it. Had Knuckles been slower, then you'd be complaining that the stages are a pain to run through. What, would you prefer to him be as fast as he was in 06? I don't think anybody wants that.
You know what's fun with Knuckles? Punching dudes. That's what he does. Make Knuckles about hitting things.
I have no idea how he didn't realize his commentary in the clip he showed disproved his own point. While it's not the objective of the levels, the hunting stages do feature a large amount of enemies. Hell, oftentimes pieces are inside enemies and you have to kill them to get it. If you like punching, do it while you're hunting. Enemies are everywhere, and doing so actually nets you more points and chaos drives and animals.
Every single one of these levels are just huge time wasters.
You know why? Because you're not good at them, and you're not willing to improve because you already decided that they were bad going into them. The truth is, the average time of the hunting stages versus the average time of the action stages, with one player of reasonable skill, is shorter. The time you spend in the hunting stages is almost entirely based on your skill at the game. So once again, your lack of skill is not the game's fault.
They suck. It's not Sonic.
It's not Sonic? I don't think he realizes just how much exploration was an element in every main Sonic game before this. CD and 3 and K especially. All Knuckles' stages are doing is expanding on the exploration and making it the main focus while keeping the same tight controls and giving them to Knuckles, whose moveset already fit that more exploratory style perfectly. Besides, who the hell are you out of all people to declare what is and isn't Sonic?
And then the tail stage starts. And yeah, I was wrong. This is the worst part of the game.
He never explains why, other than that the laser sound is annoying, so I have no choice but to assume that he's hating it for the sake of saying Sonic Adventure 2 is only 1/3 good.
This Tails and a robot thing is the dumbest damn thing ever.
Is it really? Tails, since his debut, has always made effective use of technology. He was always modifying, adding on to machines, and creating new ones, so his Cyclone, which functions as a plane, walker, and a car, only adds on to how badass of a character Tails is that he's always striving to use his genius to make incredible technology. Not to mention, it enriches the dynamic between him and Eggman and the difference in how they use their genius and technology, for good and for evil.
This isn't fun! It's mindless and irritating!
This is one of the reasons why this review is so hard to sit through, because so much of it is just Jared proclaiming that something sucks without giving substantive or valid reasons why.
When something similar to this appears in other Sonic games, we always scream, "Ugh, this isn't Sonic! Why is this in a Sonic game?" And yet, even though it's right here in, quote, the best Sonic game ever made, we act like this shit's okay. It isn't. It sucks.
To compare the Werehog to the mech stages show how little thought you put into this. The biggest factor in how the shooting stages flow with the gameplay of Sonic, and how the Werehog stages don't, is in momentum. Most of the time in the shooting stages, you're able to constantly move forward while the mechs themselves are very agile and fast. The same applies to the hunting stages. The Werehog, on the other hand, has very deliberately slow movement and platforming, and you're constantly stopped to either kill all enemies or to complete a puzzle. If you're familiar with Sonic, momentum is one of the biggest elements in Sonic gameplay, and that's why the hunting and shooting stages work alongside the more traditional speed stages in SA2, and why not as many people accept the Werehog stages. Also hilarious how he points out the Werehog as an example of how not to do things in Sonic, considering he said earlier,
Make Knuckles about hitting things.
Also, the people who complained about the guns in Jet of the Hedgehog generally weren't complaining about it from a gameplay standpoint, but that it was too mature for Sonic, despite the fact that weapons have appeared in Sonic multiple times before.
And my god, finally, another Sonic stage! And you know what? It's fun again! Much like the first stage, there's a lot of forward momentum.
Funny how he specifically makes mention of forward momentum. This only brings to light how he somehow didn't understand that the hunting and shooting stages were designed with the same principle in mind. Whether he just wasn't paying attention or is being disingenuous, I don't know.
But ever since he went 3D, loops are always treated like these monumental feats of Sonic, with the camera being all like, whoa, dude, look what he's doing! And the whole sequence taking much longer. Maybe this is a factor as to why so many people feel like the new 3D games are always on autopilot, because there's a lot more time being spent on stuff like this.
The automated sections in SA1 and 2 are often very short transitional parts that keep the action flowing while giving you some spectacle, and giving you an aerial view of the area at the end of them. But they're blown way out of proportion and made out to seem like they make the games play themselves. Besides, oftentimes if you're skilled and creative enough, you can even find ways to skip them.
Every other Knuckles level focuses on one thing, his ability to climb. But with the Dreamcast controller, there was no way to turn the camera upwards. Well, except for the D-pad, but they weren't smart enough to think of that. You know, you get some Monster Hunter Claw up in that. It only used the L and R buttons for camera control. So you can't look up or down, and every single level is filled with going up and down. It's counterintuitive.
This is what I mean when I say fabricating flaws. Camera control to look up and down while standing wouldn't be all that useful, since you usually don't find the emerald pieces by looking. You find them by traveling and using the radar instead of your eyes. If you want to explore vertically quickly, there are rockets everywhere to take you up, and you have the drill dive if you want to quickly go back down. Not to mention, when climbing, the camera will tilt in whatever direction you're moving. So with all that, to say the hunting stages don't adequately account for their vertical design is laughable.
Tails says he hacked the government computer through his walkie-talkie, I guess.
Tails has an onboard computer in his mech, as shown multiple times.
This leads to the most worthless stage in the entire game. Racing. Tails in a car, racing.
I'd hardly say it's pointless, since it's just incorporating the kart racing side mode into the main story for a bit. I don't see what the big deal is.
This isn't even hard. It's not even a race. There are no obstacles or challenge to it. The whole thing is inconsequential.
The focus here is on navigating the twisting road, maintaining your speed, and collecting rings to get a boost. Had there been hazardous obstacles here, you'd instead be complaining about how frustrating it is and hard to dodge them. You can't win. This racing minigame isn't anything special, but it certainly doesn't warrant this whining. I mean, you're the one who said it.
The whole thing is inconsequential, but this allows Sonic to enter, and this is an awful Sonic stage.
Funny, since this is actually my favorite Sonic stage, because I think it makes the most use of Sonic's movement and physics in interesting ways, and also features the bounce bracelet, my favorite power-up.
The entire mechanic of lifting up objects and moving them around only exists for just this one part of the entire game, and it slows Sonic down by a ton.
He literally just showed footage of him picking up the key and moving at the exact same speed as normal.
This stage sucks too, mostly because of how fast he moves in such small corridors.
Once again, I bring up how the acceleration works. If you don't want to go fast because you can't handle it, you have plenty of time to slow down. He acts like as soon as you push forward, Knuckles blasts off at full speed, and that's just not the case. He keeps complaining about the game supposedly slowing him down, but whenever he's allowed to go fast in the hunting stages, he instead complains about that. It's like he'll only be satisfied if all he has to do is push forward without any skill or thought. Jared goes into a point about how poor the sound mixing in this game is, and I agree. The ports of the game royally screwed up the volume of the music, voices, and sound effects, but the English voices have always had problems of speaking over each other. But that's just it. English voices. For the Japanese voices, this problem is mostly non-existent. So I know most English speakers expect the English voices to suffice for a good enough experience. But if you're really that bothered by their problems and you're aware of the Japanese voice option, you really don't have any excuse not to use them. So making a big deal that it ruins the experience is kinda on you. They are the voices the devs wanted the players to hear, after all.
Which means one last tail stage. Only now locking on and blasting everything gets you killed, because there are panels that shoot you out into space.
This isn't a bad thing. It shakes up the gameplay such that it forces you to adjust your playstyle and yes, presents more of a challenge.
Another Sonic stage, which isn't the greatest since you have to flip gravity all around, which struggles against the controls in the camera already, and it's very slow moving.
I don't know what to do here other than say I disagree. The camera and controls work fine when gravity is altered. Also, since this is one of the last stages, naturally it's going to be more difficult, and since I pointed out Jared's lack of desire to learn and improve, it's easy to understand why he feels this way.
Sonic inexplicably learned Chaos Control, and uses the fake, not as powerful emerald to warp back onto the Ark.
Once again, glossing over and misrepresenting the details of the story. Sonic witnessed Shadow using Chaos Control before and has had tons of experience using the Chaos Emeralds in the past. So if you're questioning why Sonic can use Chaos Control, the better question is, why wouldn't Sonic be able to use Chaos Control? And it's not like he pulls it off perfectly, he's shown afterwards being very wary, the power having taken his energy out of him.
Instead, let's talk about how stupid the story is.
Whew, boy, I'm about to go ham on this guy.
Since you were so kind to release me, my master, I will grant you one wish.
I'm sorry, what? You're a genie? This is never brought up again, by the way, but Shadow has wish powers.
This confusion is partly due to the English translation of I will grant you one wish from I will grant you your wish. How Shadow knows what Eggman came for is explained later, but to come away from this thinking Shadow has wish powers,
Those idiots will never find my hidden base inside this pyramid.
Even though the entire outside is surrounded by gun soldiers, knowing exactly where his base is.
Gunn had established a presence in the area, for what reason we don't know, but they hadn't noticed that Eggman had a base located inside the nearby pyramid yet.
By the way, Rouge is actually a secret agent for the US government. That never really has any relevance to the plot, but there you go.
The fact that he put a line over that cutscene shows how little he paid attention or how little he actually cared about representing the game accurately. Rouge is a freelance spy who is paid in jewels on a mission for the president. Not only does this enrich her character, but it also gives us important information about Project Shadow. Rouge is tasked with spying on Eggman, and later uncovering the truth about Project Shadow. As a result, we learn about the Bio-Lizard, supposedly the true Shadow and the ultimate lifeform, with no documentation of Shadow the Hedgehog on board the computer in the control room. Rouge confronts Shadow about this later, about how he might not be the real Shadow, and this brings up the concept of his memories being fabricated, which foreshadows what is revealed later and is very important to Shadow's character and the message of the story. So yeah, her being a spy is kind of important to giving us the information we need to know. That cutscene he showed illustrates Rouge's purpose in the story, so I have no idea how he missed this.
Blowing up the Ark's cannon somehow triggers a message from Gerald Robotnik, Eggman's grandfather.
No, it wasn't destroying the cannon that triggered it, it was the insertion of the last emerald as shown in the last Dark Story cutscene and explained by Gerald himself.
Shadow isn't helping though. This is what he wanted. Until Amy shows up and gives him the whole "people are good" speech, which triggers another Maria memory where he was supposed to protect the people of Earth and not blow them up. And Shadow finally goes, "Oh shit, that's right, gotta go!"
While the English translation of this dialogue botched the scene, it's a lot more than "people are good." What Amy is saying is that even though people might be selfish or egotistical sometimes, i.e. make mistakes, they deserve a chance to fulfill their wishes of a happy life and to rectify those mistakes. And so she's begging Shadow not to rob them of that chance. Amy's begging triggers repressed memories in Shadow of Maria saying essentially the same thing. The way Shadow instantly changes his mind is actually in service of his character, but also the message of the story. Shadow is completely devoted to Maria's wish, whatever that may be. So as soon as he knows Maria's true wish, he doesn't hesitate to flip immediately, almost like a robot. But also, this illustrates Shadow as the representation of the message of the story, which is, people make mistakes, but they deserve a chance to fulfill their wishes of a happy life. In essence, Shadow is the vehicle for people's wishes and is completely devoted to them, whether it be Maria or Gerald's wishes.
Somehow Gerald's research went from massive bio-lizard to a hedgehog.
He's a mad scientist of the Robotnik family, what do you expect? Plus it's understandable why you'd want an ultimate lifeform that is smaller and doesn't require life support to keep alive.
It's not very exciting or difficult, but at least you get to fly through space while Live and Learn plays.
I'm actually surprised Jared considers this fight easy, since it can actually be pretty challenging with all of the lasers and orbs shooting at you.
Shadow, for some reason, falls through the atmosphere and burns up, despite having better chaos control powers. That's plot convenience for you.
Their super forms and the chaos control aren't the same thing. When they go super, they're wishing on the emeralds for great power, and if you're familiar with the chaos emeralds, when you have all 7, it turns your thoughts into power. But as for why Sonic survived and Shadow didn't. Sonic at this point has gone super multiple times, so he's much more experienced. Shadow, on the other hand, is doing it for the first time, and he's also under great emotional stress, having just flipped intentions completely, having hallucinations of Maria, and fighting the Bio Lizard, which is the embodiment of his creator's revenge. So basically, he overexerted himself. In gameplay terms, Shadow ran out of rings because he was inexperienced, and Sonic was able to preserve them because of his experience.
Sonic talks about how he's totally a hero with Amy.
Huh? Sonic was considering what it meant to be created as the ultimate life form, and then hid his emotions when Amy asked what was wrong with his usual upbeat attitude.
Eggman talks with Tails about how he doesn't understand why his grandfather would want to destroy Earth, which is completely hypocritical since that was the one thing he wanted to do since the start, and he already boned everybody by f***ing up the moon.
Not quite.
He fired at the moon to demonstrate the Eclipse Cannon's power, and then proceeded to threaten the president with the destruction of his country within 24 hours if he didn't surrender to the Eggman Empire.
Eggman never wanted to destroy the planet, he just wanted to establish himself as the greatest scientific genius of the world and rule as dictator. Basically, he wanted to be recognized as the best. He's shocked that his grandfather went further than he would ever dare to, and that he'd even kill his grandson who looked up to him greatly.
Because we reinforced only the fun stages to ourselves, we warped our own perspective on the game as a whole.
While it may be true that a lot of people replayed the speech stages over and over again because they were their favorite parts of the game, that doesn't mean they magically forgot about the hunting and shooting stages. If everyone forgot about those stages, then why is SA2's story considered the best among the Sonic series, which requires playing those stages to experience, at least before YouTube was around? Why can't other people just like the hunting and shooting stages without there having to be some kind of conspiracy about people fabricating their memories about this game? The most annoying thing in this video is that Jared thinks that because he didn't enjoy the stages, that means nobody enjoyed them.
We warped our own perspective on the game as a whole.
And once again, the inverse of the truth. The reality is, misleading and dishonest reviews like this warp the reputation of an excellent game, and take advantage of those who hadn't played it in a while, or those who hadn't played it at all, and also taking advantage of the backlash and subsequent attention from the gaming community to 06.
And when those people see the adventure games and see that it has a similar style to 06, they think it must be bad too.
Partially because of the popularity of this review alone, people who actually like this game are looked at as insane. That wouldn't be so bad if the review actually brought up valid points with sound reasoning, but as I've gone into, it doesn't. But not just that, misleading millions of people with misinformation like this is harmful to the Sonic series itself. After 06, Sonic Team went in a different direction because they didn't want anything resembling 06 because they were scared shitless of repeating that mistake. And that fear has carried with them to this day. So when outsiders start going to the adventure games and deriding them because bad by association to 06,
they're just like this. They're just like this.
No, they're not.
Yeah,
it muddies the waters and makes Sonic Team unnecessarily wary of making a Sonic Adventure 3, which is exactly what Sonic needs right now.
After every bad Sonic the Hedgehog game, we cannot act like going back to the Adventure series is somehow going to fix Sonic the Hedgehog.
Sorry, but you're gonna have to take a look at these videos.
I promise you the live stream will hound me if I don't ask you this question. Same with some members of the audience, because it's a question I get asked all the time on social media. I'm gonna ask it to you now. I know you may not have an answer, it's okay. Are we ever gonna see a Sonic Adventure 3 someday?
So I am very aware of everyone's enthusiasm for Sonic Adventure 3. There are currently no plans to make Sonic Adventure 3, but I'd really like to potentially make it in the future.
Wait.
If possible. There's no plans.
So no promise, but
Someday.
you might think about it.
Someday. Someday, I'd like to make Sonic Adventure 3.
The Adventure series is by far and away the most acclaimed and beloved time in all of 3D Sonic's life, and it's not just because of nostalgia. The outcry for Sonic Adventure 3 has persisted ever since Sonic Heroes. There's evidence of this in your own videos since you showed us comments on people wanting the adventure style. The adventure games are a hot topic. Hell, isn't that why you made this video? After Sonic Forces teasing us with glimmers of the adventure style, the desire for it is stronger than ever. There's a clear demand, and if you're a smart business, you supply. But because of all the misinformation pushed by reviews like this, Sonic Team is under the impression that making an Adventure 3 is some kind of wild risk. And since it's been shown that Sonic Team listens to genius critics instead of their own fans...
Recently, for example, the notion finally broke through that most people want Sonic games to be about Sonic, and that his ever-expanding entourage of neon woodland creatures can all go dive under a tractor.
This anti-adventure narrative is a big problem. Do you have any clue how much money a Sonic Adventure 3 would make just from the title alone? Sales aren't everything, but doesn't the fact that the adventure games are so beloved and that they're still highly relevant today tell you something? I'm sure there were tons of kids who played Bubsy 3D and have strong nostalgia for it too. Where's the demand for a sequel to that game? Both Bubsy 3D and Sonic Adventure 2 are terrible, right? So why the dissonance? Hell, Sonic Colors is considered a good game by a lot of people, but you hardly see anybody demanding for a sequel to that game. You might not like the adventure games, but there are a hell of a lot of people who did and still do, so why should Sonic Team listen to you and not them?
If the whole game was just Sonic the Hedgehog and not his stupid friends, the game would be a lot better.
I hate to get snarky here, but you know someone who's talking about Sonic is full of shit when they bring up that Sonic stupid friends talking point. And unfortunately, much to the fans and my dismay, Sonic Team actually listens to that crap, and as a result, we've got a decade's worth of games where we only get to play as Sonic.
When the Adventure series isn't that great. In fact, it sucks.
Yes, the Adventure series which millions of people enjoyed and still talk about and demand a sequel for because of their fluid and open gameplay, great stories, memorable characters, amazing soundtracks, and massive amount of content. It's a fact that they suck. You're all just wrong. Adventure 3 won't help the Sonic series no matter how many millions of people buy it and get people talking about Sonic again. Because I don't like them. And if you do, your perception of the game is warped.
In fact, it sucks. Except for the marshmallow bits. And it's okay to like the marshmallow bits, because I sure do.
Implying it's not okay to like the other parts? Jared, I really don't want to get personal, but do you not realize how arrogant it sounds when you implicitly state that it's not okay to like the non-Sonic stages because you don't like them? Why can't people just like those stages and by extension the game, rather than that they've mentally blocked them out so their perception of the game is, quote, warped? Just because you didn't like them doesn't mean everyone else feels the same way. And besides, if you went back to those stages with a more open mind without any of the preconceived bias, I'm sure you would warm up to them because I think they do have a lot of worth in their own right. Well, that was the video. To be honest, I don't know if ProJared actually made this review to warp people's perception of the game, given his smug demeanor throughout.
After every bad Sonic the Hedgehog game, we cannot act like going back to the Adventure series is somehow going to fix Sonic the Hedgehog, where the Adventure series isn't that great. In fact, it sucks.
How he keeps fabricating problems.
The dude runs fast, like practically Sonic fast. In fact, too fast.
And how many times he makes bold declarations on how everybody should feel.
Because we reinforced only the fun stages to ourselves, we warped our own perspective on the game as a whole.
I'm at least a little wary of his motives. But in spite of all that, I want to make it clear that I don't hate ProJared and I don't have any ill will towards him. I've explained how many of the criticisms Jared brings up I can't relate to or are either invalid or inaccurate. While there's always a degree of subjectivity and taste to whether or not you like something, Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 definitely don't deserve the lashing they've received. Speaking for myself, I love these games with all my heart, and I can say that definitively because I replay them regularly. And I cannot recommend them enough to anyone who hasn't played them. I really do think they deserve to be considered great games alongside the titans like Mario or Spyro or Crash or Ocarina of Time, other early 3D games. Contrary to what Jared says, the alternative styles are not awful. They actually have a lot of depth and are well designed, and you can easily see that if you just give them a chance. I personally really enjoy them. I've rebutted some of the criticisms against this game, but I haven't really made the case itself as to why the games are great, at least not in detail. So, if you still think the adventure games are terrible, then stay tuned for 2 future, much more positive videos, in which I will go into extreme detail with Sonic Adventure 1 and 2, and give the games the positive exposure they deserve. But as I'll be going into extreme detail, I'll of course talk about the things which I actually think are legitimate flaws, or things that I think could have been improved. I just have a strong desire to counteract this growing anti-adventure sentiment. I think it's extremely important to let fans know that they aren't wrong for liking Sonic Adventure, and hopefully get some more people to take a look at them for themselves, or look at them in a way that they hadn't thought of before. At the end of the day, I just want these games to be given the positive recognition they deserve. Because if we can push back against the smears on the Sonic Adventure series, we'll get closer to getting an actual Sonic Adventure 3, which really is what Sonic really needs right now. I can make a whole video on its own just explaining why that is. Now, there's still be the question of Sonic Team being competent enough at this point to create a worthy SA3, but I don't think that's a reason never to do it. The roots of 2D Sonic has returned, so I say it's time for the roots of 3D Sonic to return as well. And contrary to what Jared's review said, I think they did mostly nail it the first time around. So it's worth bringing back. Jared, if you're watching this, all I ask is that you represent games fairly and accurately whenever you review them, because you have a large audience and a highly viewed videos that sway general opinion and affect the actual series themselves. Really, I ask the same to any big content creator who talks about video games. Hey yo guys, thanks for watching the video. I hope the reception isn't too negative, but whatever. If you did enjoy, please give a like, and if you want to see more of this kind of stuff, in addition to my Let's Plays and animated series, then please subscribe and also support me on Patreon to hopefully make this stuff my living. Thanks again guys, peace out.